Now that we've talked about different types of color wheels, we've determined which one we are going to be using, we've talked about how to read a color wheel and how to mix paint, let's move on to talking about underpainting. This is a painting technique that we are going to be using for our animal eyes. So what is underpainting? Oh, I will tell you. It is where you have a layer of paint for your base and you are going to layer paint on top of it. So the goal with this underpainting is to let that base layer kind of peek through the other colors or textures we put on top. So as you can see here, there is the main layer, and then once that's dried, they drew on with a pencil, which yes, you can see pencil on this. Then that kind of tells you where they need to apply paint at. So with that white furry texture, you can see that the brown undercoat is shining through. And that's what we're wanting. We don't want it to be like really, really thick on top of that. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of underpainting. Underpainting is where you let that base kind of shine through and it gives it a kind of rich, deep look and it helps it look realistic. Moving on to looking at some examples. That top left corner is a beautifully done parrot. Wow, look at that base layer shining through. Those feathers look way more realistic because of that underpainting process. They did a nice job mixing some of the oranges and greens and whatnot. But the thing that they would get dinged on is that very bright yellow spot at the top. That looks like they took yellow straight from the bottle and applied it onto their painting. You never want to use paint straight from the bottle. Even if it really actually looks that bright of a yellow, do not do it. It makes your painting look flat. So anytime that you put a color onto your painting, it should be mixed with another color of sorts. I say this with the exception of white. Sometimes you can't apply white straight on there because some of that underpainting will still shine through the white because it's so light. But you never want to use just plain blue, plain red, or plain yellow on your painting. The one on the bottom right is a nice example. They have many different types of greens and blues, browns, yellows. They also had a lot of textures in there, so this is also a nice example. Here are just some more examples. As you can see, everyone's eye is going to look different based on the colors needed and the techniques. Also, everyone has a slightly different style, so these are some pretty nice examples. Here are a couple more. That top left, like chameleon lizard thing, was done very differently than the reptile on the bottom right. So lots of different types of colors and techniques here. Oh my goodness gracious, look at this. This is some sort of cat, and it is done very nicely as well. Lots of variation of colors, very neat and tidy brush techniques, and as you can see, it's a really great result. Now that we've looked at some different examples of nice work done, I want you to take a look at these three. All three of these use the same animal eye photo reference. So these students were working off of the same photo because yes, there are duplicates, but as you can see, there are different results even if someone has the same photo. So do you think that number 1 is the best, number 2, or number 3? If you thought that number 1 was the best, we need to have a serious conversation. This one is done sloppy. Not a lot of mixing of colors is happening, and the colors that are mixed are not done well. The lighter blues are actually tones. So this will happen when, let's say you try to make a color lighter, and then you are like, oh, it's too light, and you try to make it darker, and you don't wash your brush. You will get a tone, so you're mixing black and white in there, and it will make it look very dull and flat. So if you are going to change colors, you need to wash your brush. If you thought this one was the best one, I feel like you're just trying to make me mad. This one is overall sloppy. They used a large brush for everything. They did not mix all of their colors. I can tell that blue is straight from the bottle. And I don't even honestly know what I'm looking at. The direction of fur is very sporadic. And it just doesn't really look like they cared about it. So this is not the best one. If you chose this for the best one, we can now be best friends because I trust you and you know what you're talking about. Look at the colors used in this. Oh my gosh, there's so many different types of blues and browns in there. They did that glare in the eye really well. It is a very nicely done work of art. The last thing we're going to talk about are the actual painting steps we're going to be doing to create our animal eye painting. Here we have that step 1, which will be to paint that base layer. This is what we want to shine through. It's the darkest part of your whole painting. It's the color that's behind the fur or scales or feathers. You are then, the next day after it's dried, going to draw the outline of the eye and any like lines or shapes or direction of fur that you see with a pencil. After that, you're going to move on to step 2, 3, and 4 and kind of just dive right in. I usually start with the actual iris color and then I'll work my way outwards, but you will just kind of keep going back over, let's say, your iris, do your burst like the next day, start in on some of the different textures you see based on whatever animal that you choose, and you'll kind of just keep creating colors and layering and using different texture techniques until you get a beautiful result like this one. Wow, you can do this. This was a 7th grader. And if you know how to mix colors and you listen to the different painting techniques that we teach you, you will create a beautiful piece of art like this. The last thing I want to show you, and I know you guys are probably tired of hearing my voice because I've been talking forever, but this is a really great example of going the extra mile. So that one on the left is beautifully done. I would have called this finished, but she went on to clean up that iris, that bursty part in the iris. She put even more colors and textures in the fur, and the results are just amazing. Yes, indeed, a 7th grader did this, and so can you.